Well, welcome back to this program, Books of the Book, and we are with Dr. John Pauline. Dr. Pauline, we said we would get back to Lazarus, so is there something else to say on Lazarus?
Well, I want to remind us that in the Gospel of John, the stories are acted parables. They represent something, some theological teaching that's elsewhere in the book. And the theological teaching that's represented here is actually found in John 5, verses 28 and 29. So Jesus is acting out what he will do there. Mm-hmm. Why don't you read John chapter 5 and verses 28 and 29.
Do not marvel at this, for the hour is coming in which all who are in the grace will hear his voice and come forth, those who have done good to the resurrection of life, and those who have done evil to the resurrection of condemnation.
So here in the Lazarus story, Jesus is acting out what he will do at the end of time, mm-hmm. when he raises the dead.
Okay.
At his second coming, and ultimately after the millennium as well.
Let's talk about now Lazarus' sisters.
Yeah,
Mary and Martha.
That's very interesting, Lazarus' sisters, because we tend to see the sisters in the light of Luke 10. We don't think of them so much in the light of John 11. Why don't we go to Luke 10 and verses 38 to 42.
So chapter 10 and verses 38.
Mm-hmm.
Now it happened as they went that he entered a certain village, and a certain woman named Martha welcomed him into her house. And she had a sister called Mary, who also sat at Jesus' feet and heard his word. But Martha was distracted with much serving, and she approached him and said, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Therefore, tell her to help me. And Jesus answered and said to her, Martha, Martha, you are worried and troubled about many things, but one thing is needed, and Mary has chosen that good part, which will not be taken away from her.
This is the lens, I think, through which most of us look at the sisters. You know, Martha's kind of task-oriented. She's into the cooking and the cleaning and all that. Mary, on the other hand, wants to go deep with Jesus. She wants to be with him. She wants to hear him, and so on. And if, in fact, she is the woman of a couple chapters before in Luke, that was the sinner who washed his feet with her hair and so forth, then you could see that she would be in love with the man who truly changed her heart and gave her a new life. Mm. But John 11 looks at the sisters with a little bit different lens. You know, people are complex, mm-hmm. and they're not always, you get a glimpse of them, that's not the whole person. Let's get a closer glimpse of these two sisters in chapter 11. And we can start in verses 20 to 22. John chapter 11, 20 to 22.
Now Martha, as soon as she heard that Jesus was coming, went and met him, but Mary was sitting in the house. Now Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would have not died. But even now I know that whatever you ask of God, God will give you.
Now Jesus, when he arrives, he doesn't actually come into town. He stays in a park just at the edge of town. And word comes to the sisters that Jesus has come, and he's in the park out there. Mm-hmm. Martha jumps up and runs out to Jesus, and she says, you know, if only you had been here, Lazarus wouldn't have died. But even in that complaint, she expresses, she says, well, I know even now God will give you whatever you ask. So it's interesting, Mary doesn't go, Martha does go. And it raises the question, is Mary a more fragile personality? Is she hurt that Jesus delayed? She says, I don't want to talk to him, you know? Is she maybe uncertain how he feels about her, that he didn't respond the way that she expected? So Martha expresses some disappointment, but she also expresses faith. And then go to verses 23 and 24.
Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. Martha said to him, I know that he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day.
And then here's the thing. In verse 25 to 27, Jesus gives the most glorious expression of resurrection in the whole Bible, and Martha draws that out from him. Go ahead, read it.
Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he may die, he shall live. And whoever lives and believes in me shall never die. "Do you believe this?" She said to him, "Yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who is to come into the world."
Her statement is the most glorious expression of exactly what Jesus wants. You are the Messiah. You are the Son of God. You are the one who is to come into the world. Now, Thomas actually exceeds that in chapter 20, so-called doubting Thomas, when he says, "My Lord and my God," you know. But that is drawn out by seeing. Martha makes this statement without seeing. Lazarus hasn't been raised from the dead. The future resurrection isn't there to be inspected. Jesus says, "I am the resurrection and the life," and she says, "Yep, I get it. I know who you are." So Martha becomes the representative of the second generation who believes without seeing. And that makes this a very special and glorious story. She represents mature faith and discipleship. What about Mary? Let's bring Mary back into the story. Verse 28.
And when she had said these things, she went away and secretly called Mary, her sister, saying, "The teacher has come and is calling for you."
Continue.
As soon as she heard that, she arose quickly and came to him. Now Jesus had not yet come into the town, but was in the place where Martha had met him. Then the Jews who were with her in the house and comforting her, when they saw that Mary rose up and quickly went out, followed her, saying, "She is going to the tomb to weep there." Then when Mary came where Jesus was and saw him, she fell down at his feet, saying to him, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would have not died."
Now, she says the same thing
The
Martha
same
said.
thing, yeah.
Now you notice Martha specially calls us, "The Lord is asking for you." And that suggests to me that maybe Mary was doubting whether Jesus really would accept her. You know, he didn't come for my brother, you know, maybe he doesn't want to see me either. And I would see Mary as something of a fragile personality, especially if this Mary is the same as Mary Magdalene, and some think even the woman taken in adultery. If she has this kind of checkered history, then she's still somebody whose emotions are all over the map and fragile and so on. And that's the kind of person we see here. Like Martha, she expresses some doubt, but unlike Martha, she expresses no faith. And Jesus' presence doesn't draw out faith from her. So let's continue. Verse 33.
Therefore, when Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who came with her weeping, he groaned in the spirit and was troubled.
It doesn't just say that he was crying with them, but he was troubled. In other words, there was something very disturbing in this situation. Didn't happen when Martha came, but it happened when Mary came. So continue through verse 38.
And he said, "Where have you laid him?" They said to him, "Lord, come and see." Jesus wept. Then the Jews said, "See how he loved him." And some of them said, "Could not this man who opened the eyes of the blind also have kept this man from dying?" Then Jesus, again groaning in himself, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone lay against it.
So here you see.
What was he troubled about?
Well, the two things that are obvious are the statements first from Mary. You know, if you had been here, my brother wouldn't have died. Unlike Martha, it almost comes across as an accusation because there's no faith that comes with it. There's no positive in that statement. And so he's troubled there. He weeps. And then people say, what was it in verse 37? Could not the one who opened the eyes of the blind have kept this man from dying? And that is not grasping the fact that Jesus is truly who he claims to be. As God, death is not the end of the story. So they are expressing doubt that Jesus can do anything about the situation. Now, if he had been here earlier, everything would be okay. He could have kept this man from dying, but they don't believe that he can raise him from the dead. Now, even Martha wavers a little bit at this point. Notice verse 39. He says, "Take away the stone," Jesus said. And Martha says, "But Lord," said Martha, the sister of the dead man, "by this time there's a bad odor." He's been there for 4 days. Then Jesus said, "Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God. And then it tells the story. They took away the stone. Jesus looked up and said, Father, I thank you that you've heard me. I knew you always hear me, but I said this for the benefit of the people standing here, that they may believe that you have sent me. And he calls Lazarus out, and Lazarus comes. The beautiful thing is that the raising of Lazarus raises Mary's spirits. And in the very next chapter, we see her totally sold out to Jesus. And no more doubts, no more questions, no more wavering, staying here and let Jesus be over here. She wants to be with him all the time. And she senses that Jesus is going to die. And so she brings this perfume, probably a year's wages. She brings this perfume to anoint him for his burial. So in chapter 12, Mary shows the ultimate devotion. In chapter 11, Martha is the one that shows this second generation devotion, belief without seeing. Mary, like Thomas, needs to see. She needs to touch in order to believe. But once she truly believes, she is totally devoted and totally sold out to Jesus. And I find this observation to be tremendously encouraging, because a lot of people are like Mary and Martha. There's a lot of people who are really structured, they're not that emotional, they're efficient, they get the job done, and they kind of look down at the people whose emotions are all over the map just a little bit. So Martha represents those people who are distracted and don't come to Jesus because they're distracted. Their life is full, they've got things to do, emails to answer, and so on. Mary, on the other hand, is the kind of person whose heart is in the right place, but their emotions are all over the map. One day they're in love with Jesus, the next day their head is somewhere else, the next day they're distracted by this here and there. And the beauty of this is that both of these sisters come to true, full, deep, genuine faith at the end. And that's the beautiful story. It doesn't matter what your personality is. There are all kinds of personalities. It doesn't matter how consistent you are as a person. Some people are up and down, other people are steady as a rock. But Jesus works with all of them. Every one of us has access to him. And there's no need for us to say, oh, he wouldn't possibly accept me, because we know that he would. He loves us as we are, and he takes us and he makes us what we could be.
Amen. And Dr. Pauline, Jesus can still resurrect people today from their spiritual death.
That's right.
And friends, perhaps you at one point accepted Jesus and let him go. Well, today Jesus wants to make that call to resurrect you, to come forth and to live a life in him. God bless you till next time.